Here to discuss and agree on the content of our draft annual plan so we can start the consultation process. This is a crucial step so we can hear back from our community about what we're planning to deliver over the next year. Before we dive into the details and hear from our staff, we'll listen to the recommendations from the Audit and Risk Management Committee. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Councillor McClelland, our Deputy Chair of Audit and Risk, to share the committee's recommendations. Over to you, Jake.
Thank you. Bruce, firstly, apologies from Bruce. He would have liked to have been here, but he's up in Wellington. And obviously, if anyone is in need of a good audit and risk chair, it would be Wellington. ARMC met on Monday to consider the 2025-26 annual plan process and council's intention to consult with the public. Our committee's role is to consider the systems, processes and controls implemented, ensuring the plan and resulted consultation document will be robust and useful. We are not debating the policies or positions reached. That's for full council. We did note and discuss councillors progressing to a balanced budget over time. We recognise the substantial work put in by both elected members and staff. And now it's time to discuss this with the community. We're particularly appreciative of the care and concern management showed through the quality review process and sign-offs, and we confirm that in the committee's opinion, an appropriate process has been followed in preparation of the information that provides the basis for the draft annual plan 2025-26. In short, it's good to go.
Excellent. Has anyone got any questions relating to the Audit and Risk Management Committee? Sarah, please.
Kia ora, thanks. Thanks, Jake. Just wondering about the balanced budget and rating for renewals, and how comfortable is the committee on having such a long period of time and the process around making that decision, for the financial prudence stuff?
We didn't speak to the. Does staff have a comment on that?
Through you, Your Worship, and councillors. Look, I think that issue was explored a little bit, and staff were asked for their comments. The balanced budget issue was noted, but if you look across the timeline of the plan, we do have a balanced budget. And in terms of the renewals, they note that it's out by a year under the financial strategy, but I think generally from a financial point of view, they were comfortable that it was a satisfactory or prudent position for us to be in at present.
Okay, thanks.
Okie doke. Righto, that's all the questions on that. So now we'll move on to invite staff to introduce the report. Bede, Russell and Pete. So far away, gents.
Morena, Mayor and councillors, and thank you very much. Look, as was noted by Councillor McCullum making the observations or comments from the Audit and Risk Committee, this follows on from the work that has been undertaken, really starting, I suppose, back in August last year with that initial workshop. We had the meeting of 10th December last year where direction was given on the draft annual plan and its build. And that's what we're presenting today in terms of for consultation with the community. But with that, I might hand on to Peter to run through the report and allow Russell any comments before we hand back for questions.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Look, I think just a 2-minute summary of how we got here and where we are before we dive into the detail of the document. Council signed off a 2024 to 34 long-term plan last year in June. That had a rates increase based on a variety of factors around inflation, insurance, staff for Parakiore Rec and Sports Centre, climate resilience, coastal adaptation and Te Kaha, among some other things. The purpose of this annual plan is to make transparent any changes since June. They have come to light. There are some, and they've come to light in the 9 workshops between September and December. And the annual plan you're considering today is the result of the formal council meeting of 10th of December and the direction we got there. It's not a fundamental amendment of the LTP. Council was very clear that's not the purpose of this plan or the process. It does contain proposed changes that Council's given direction on. One of those is an increase in inflation around the local government bill forecast. There are changes to drinking water, wastewater and stormwater maintenance, some additional rating for asset renewals, and some costs imposed by central government around water services regulators and some other ups and downs that we'll get to. The net effect of all of that, after some positives were applied, credits, insurance settlement, etc., is that the LTP rates increase of 8.48% is currently proposed at 8.93, a change of just under 0.5%. That's the crux of where we're at. The detail is set out in attachment O of the report. But as we move through the day, it will be helpful to keep those factors and levers in mind around debate and discussion as they're the drivers of the plan that we've got so far as a draft. So that's the overview. Unless Russell or Bea, do you want to add anything further to that?
No, that's good.
Okay. Look, I'm happy to step through the report, but it's too bulky to line by line. The process we have followed was agreed and given to us by Council in August of last year. The direction was very clear. We're not amending the LTP. We don't want to incur audit costs and fundamentally rewrite something that was only signed off 6 or 7 months ago. The changes in there are pretty clear. There have been some positives applied to bring the rates down as much as we could find. The sign-off process for audit and risk, as Councillor McClelland has said, was pretty clear. We're straight on our facts about how these numbers are made up. I think the best thing would be to follow the step-by-step guide that committee support has supplied on how to do the process from here, unless there are other questions at the beginning around the context and the starting point that we're launching from.
Okay, all good? Right. Do councillors have any questions about staff on the annual plan only, just what they've just presented, because we've got the juicier stuff later on? Any questions? Nope, that's good. So I'll move on to, I'll move and Pauline will second. Yep. Recommendations 1, 2 and 3. Is there any debate from anyone, if they want to, on recommendations 1, 2 or 3? Okay. All happy? Reading? Good as gold. Right, I'll put recommendations 1, 2 and 3 to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Thank you, that's carried. Right. Now I am moving and Pauline is seconding the suspending of standing orders. Everyone's happy with that, so I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you, carried. And this is, I will move and Pauline will second a recommendation 4. And this is just to put the annual plan on the table and open up for debate and any councillors that amendments might happen. So that's just out there. So now we'll move on to, I will now ask councillors if they have any amendments that they wish to put forward for the draft annual plan, including a seconder. Once we have received and clarified all the potential amendments, we will then take a break while staff gather the relevant information and rates impacts. Once you have raised your amendment, please email this to Sam, and including your seconder. Now, can councillors raise their hand if they have an amendment, please?
Sorry, when you asked before, anyone got any questions on 1, 2 and 3, that was just the ARMC. I had a question on the staff presentation that was not ARMC.
It was.
Oh, just when you read it out,
It was all the staff
it
presentation.
was all question. Oh, okay.
The
That's
first
fine.
one was when
Yeah.
And the ARMC Rex.
yeah, the AMC first, and then you asked any questions about the
staff.
yeah.
Okay. I must have
But you could, you've set aside standing orders, so if
Yeah, can I
Sarah's
just-
got questions, you could
Yeah.
ask them.
Sorry, can I just clarify on the rating for renewals? So on page 16, we've got a section in there, 12.7, with an alternative for rating for renewals. So in the LTP we had a resolution that said that we would consider increasing rating for renewals. So I just want to clarify that that's the information in here that would allow that to take place if we chose to discuss and debate that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's quite correct. Yes, the request was for information to come back that could be considered. So
Yeah.
that's the basis of that information, what the impact would be.
Okay, and so if it was $2 million, you'd just double the stuff that was in there?
That's correct. We've gone for the $1 million to show the impact. So that's sort of like the template. So then you can take it from there. Yep.
And the impact over 26 to 31, it's like 0.81, 0.5, so it's $1.31 million total in savings for a $1 million a year investment. Or is that $1.3 million a year savings? Which would make sense from the information we had in the LTP.
Sorry, I'm just referring to the... So through you, Mr. Mayor, so the components are we're saving over the longer term, over the 6 years effectively. Interest saving is 0.81 million. Yeah. Debt repayment that we don't have to do is $500,000, and so overall rate saving is the 1.31 over that term. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And if we invested $2 million, you'd save $2.62 million worth of extra payments that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's correct for each year. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
top one is for the 6 years. So we're saying at the moment that's just 1 year, $1 million in each of the 6 years.
Yeah.
So if we were to whatever factor on
Yeah.
top of that, then that would increase those numbers by that same factor.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, is anyone else? Excuse me, Yanni.
Yeah, thanks. I was just wondering, as between when we gave the initial direction and today, have there been any changes to the capital program? And if so, what are they?
Through you, Your Worship, look, any changes to the capital program have come back through the PMO reporting process through F&P. So is that your, just clarifying, is that your question, other than what we have signalled in the report here is proposed in terms of any capital changes? So those are the two avenues through which changes for the capital program have been presented to Council.
Right, okay. And are you able just to talk through, in terms of the engagement with community boards to get to this stage, what feedback we've had from community boards and what's been added as a result or changed as a result?
Through you, Your Worship, I think those who attended the community board meetings and presented the various parts, whether it's transport and parks and reserves and so on, would probably be better placed to provide that feedback, or through the community board process. I haven't got that detail, but I do know that there have been a series of meetings and that information has flowed and has been taken into account. I couldn't speak to all of the detail though.
Will there be something in the consultation document that talks about the program level changes?
Through you, Your Worship, I think Andrew was going to make a comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's quite a detailed program for this work that's been agreed with the board chairs. That can be circulated separately if you wish, so that all councillors can be reminded of what that process is and the dates and the timing.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. Yeah.
Thank you. That's good. Any other questions before we move on? So now, as from what I understand, there is roughly 10 amendments. Is that right? Thereabouts, whatever. So if councillors can now raise their hand if they have an amendment, and don't forget we've got to send it through to Sam, including your seconder. Oh, sorry, Tyler, you had I'll just look at my list. You had a question first.
Yeah, I just wanted to gain some clarity. So there's, other than the reporting that we've been given over the F&P report meetings, there's been no substantial or notable changes to the capital program from the long-term plan to now.
No, so any changes to the capital program from the LTP are either in this report and such as work that may be getting rephased or changed, or we've identified it through the reports, the PMO reports that come up through F&P are really the only two ways that changes would be come back to the council. So, is there any project in particular?
No. So in the last LTP and the annual plan before that, there was sort of a tracking system where we were able to see what changes are being proposed to be cut and those to be pushed forward. It didn't happen this time. It was a lot different in this annual plan, so I just wanted to make sure that there's no fish hooks.
My understanding was that for the last one, it was the things that were being moved in the forward program. At the moment, changes are only being made through F&P of movement, movements that actually this project's not going to be able to be delivered by December. We need to push it out to February, or there's been so the movements are usually within the existing program and moving them in terms of timing and potentially sometimes in terms of budget changes within the program. For the LTP, the changes were forecasting 10 years out, the whole 10-year program.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between an annual plan and an LTP, if that makes sense.
No, yeah. In the annual plan before the LTP, there was a tracking system on all of the capital projects that we had for our wards, which were proposed to be changed. So, like, for example, transport and water gave us red lines and spreadsheets to say this is what we're proposing. I just wanted to make sure that there's none of those in this one because we sort of didn't have the same system. Cool.
Okay. Celeste, do you have a question on this or an amendment coming up?
Both.
Well, we'll do the question now, and we'll do the amendment
sure.
when we get onto that.
So this is just a follow-up to Yanni's question. We have a list of community board priorities, and we gave feedback through the community board has given feedback in terms of reprioritisation of some specific things, such as parks and so forth. But we haven't been given any updated lists, so we don't know what's being reprioritised. How do we know what to advocate for if we don't have that information?
I think that was in your...
Sorry, thanks, Brent. The date for sending all the information back has not been reached yet, but it's due shortly. So you'll see the response in a second once Sam can distribute it.
Sure.
It's got the full detailed schedule of the program that was agreed with all the board chairs on how that work would be carried out.
Okay.
Just a comment on that. The challenge is, of course, we can't see where things sit. So if things are not on budget this year and we want to advocate for that, we don't have that information to make amendments today. So I'm just making that.
So my understanding is that what this council's agreed to has been a capital program envelope, including some major projects, but at a board level there's been an envelope of funding and then agreed that actually the boards would prioritise. So so there's no change to the envelope of funding that's happened. It's just actually which programs fit in or out of that. And that happens generally because there's movement all the time throughout the year of what's in and out depending on timing and budgets and
Yeah, and that's the information we're looking for,
envelope stayed the same.
substitutions,
Yeah.
if they'd been moved into the year lines that we'd requested. It's just that information that the board put forward.
X number of dollars has been given to each board. Staff have gone around and talked to each board and said, how do you want to suspend the X number of dollars? And it's up to the board to do it, not to bring it back here and say, I want this, I want that. It's already in the board process. Yanni.
I don't think that's what happened. Staff went around with the programs of work that they had with the specific projects. So the board got to see projects in year 1, 2, 3, I think maybe a bit longer out. The feedback, I think, or the request was that anything in the first financial year could not be touched, but that the feedback would go towards 2 and 3 so that those things could be switched around. But it wasn't a case of the boards getting a big lump sum and saying, how do you want to spend it? It was a case of this is what's already on budget. These are the projects that are already within the programs, and you can
prioritize and
look at that. But for example, there's a flooding thing in here, which has got a lot of money, got a big increase, the surface flooding reduction program. But I have no visibility of the streets that are in that for this year, right? And yet I've had complaints from residents for certain areas. So again, it's just like, how can people make submissions if they
Sorry,
can't see?
Phil, but I mean, if you take that example, that was a Pauline-led amendment from the LTP, which got council support, and the idea was it would be worked through. So, I mean, we're at the draft, aren't we?
But
Unless I've got something wrong.
So I've asked for what's the process and timing, prioritisation. I still haven't had that resolved. If, like, for example, do I put forward streets today to get added to that list?
I know for a fact that I saw the list of upcoming meetings that we're going to have, not meetings, what's it called? Workshops. And there's a list by Gavin of, I think, 30 odd or whatever, and that's going to be put in front of us real soon on where we start, because it's up to us to decide, there's X number of dollars, which one do you want, where do you want it, and that's coming.
The point is, like, we're going out for consultation on our draft annual plan. The community, like the people in McLean Street, will probably want to make submissions and probably want to have visibility of what we're doing in that space. So how do we...
So can we, just have, when we have a break, we'll do some discussion about there's potential, and I will check whether we can make sure that visibility is available.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, right?
It won't, I think it would make the consultation too long, but if possible, we could have a link to that information where people can go in from and have a look, but I'll need to check that will be available in time.
It's only the first year, and it's only 20 million a year, I believe, that's going in there, so people can say, well, we'd like this one, and if it lines up with the list that we're going to get, well and good, but we haven't got a lot of money in there at the moment, but it is starting.
So can we just park it for the moment, and we'll see what, and come back to you with what propose we can do.
Okay, so the only other question, and thank you, we got the Eastgate bus memo like last night, which, you know, I appreciate getting the information back, but is there anything else that's outstanding that we were supposed to have done before the draft annual plan was agreed to inform the draft annual plan before we sign off on it?
No.
Like, for example, I was under the impression we'd get more information about Bromley roads, for example. But there might be other things that we'd agreed. So has anyone checked what the outstanding actions are and if we've given effect to those?
Peter, your team have looked through the outstanding actions and there were none open, is that correct?
I believe there are still some open.
Oh, there.
That's pending technical advice from the head of service.
Right.
Okay. So still chasing some of those open action items.
Right, okay.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Okay,
Right.
so-
Aaron?
Well, just on the point that Yanni was raising around streets, isn't any community or any street allowed to submit on the annual plan on stuff they would like? So if you're a local councillor that has an issue, put a wee post up. Andre does a lot of them, so you can learn something off his page, anyone here, and say, if you have an issue around this, submit on the annual plan. And then when we hear back that list, we can prioritise. If we hear from McLean Street, like every single resident writes in and says it's a problem, as a council, we're most likely to go, we should probably put McLean Street near the top. I thought that's how it worked.
No, that's not always how it works.
Thank you,
That'll
Mel.
delay it for another
It
year.
is, it is.
Okay.
You can also work through your community board, just saying.
Peter's.
Have been doing that, and we're still waiting to get the response back from Transport. Still haven't had it back after several weeks. So I have been trying, and you know, like, it's just, we're setting the budget, and look at what happened on Wine Street, you know, and then it ends up delaying the project for another year, 2 years.
Peter.
So
Just a very quick point.
Quiet, please, Peter.
There is a very detailed schedule of capital changes attached to the report. It goes down to the level of Ruru Cemetery burial beam removal, 1 and 2K projects. But there is a second set, which Andrew's referred to, around the normal ongoing iterative action between boards and programs of work. And they don't normally appear in the annual plan or LTP because they're iterative, constantly moving interplay between the board and staff. So there's kind of 2 levels to this discussion. One is in the document, the other one is the one that Andrew referred to. Does that
Yep, good, great. Right, we'll now move on to amendments. I have Mark had his hand up for a start, and what is it, please? And have you sent it to Sam?
Yeah, I was communicating with Sam and Bede last night. So it's around the Air Force Museum grant questioning and just reworking that text.
So what's the, because we need to do this in public. So what is your amendment? Your amendment is,
The amendment is to redraft the text for the Air Force Museum grant question.
And you've got a seconder? You're all good?
Yep.
Righto, no problem. Righto. Sam?
who's the seconder? Vote.
Yep, thanks. I've got a few. So the first one is to carry forward 8 million additional from this year's forecast surplus to use on the additional payroll costs budgeted for next year. The next one is hold the capital, but this may be
Do you have a seconder for that one?
Aaron. Yeah, I've just put Aaron against the lot.
Okay.
Assuming you're okay with that. Don't worry, there's no spending. So that's good. The next one is, but it may be subject. It may just need to be before Victoria and Tyrone do their one. I mean, maybe after their one, which is hold the capital program amount at the LTP budget for the next annual plan, and use the projected carry forward balance of the capital program to reflect changes by council to the Three Waters budget, which is pretty standard. It just reflects our changes. The next one, Aaron's.
It's against all of them.
For the next one, it's of the rate reduction debt repayment applied of the current forecast, which we've got that split baked into the budget, because we're reducing the capital program in the above amendment, move the balance to rates reduction. 4, request the Chief Executive in time for the adoption of the final annual plan to provide additional saving options for Council to consider to offset rates, noting that these savings need to be options permissible without triggering an LTP. The next one is, and we may need to work on the wording of this, just remove all speed bumps, safety cushion budget items from the transport capital and operational budgets for the draft annual plan. But we may need to just work on the tweaking of that because they might not be line items, they may be within budgets. So if transport are able to get a quantum, that would be cool. And then the last one for me, we've got a bit in there, but just to be really, really clear, adding into the draft consultation document a question regarding what ratepayers would like us to not spend money on.
Okay, we've got
That's
that.
me.
Thank
Cool.
you. Righto, we've got the next one. Who had Sarah, hand up?
Thanks. That council consult on selling the Litchfield Street car parking building as using that capital to improve our water infrastructure. The second one, that staff provide advice, and Tyrone's seconding that one, that staff provide advice on establishing a searchable decision-making transparency tool like Wellington City Council have just launched in time for the adoption of the annual plan. That's one that's searchable. You can see who voted for what and that kind of stuff. And so Tyler, you're doing that one. And then that council consult on increasing rating for renewals by $2 million a year to make savings and costs over time. And Melanie's seconding that one. And Melanie's seconding, and they're all sent through.
All done. Now, just to put people in the picture with Litchfield Street, I have been working on that with staff for the last, probably 2-4 months, and the report, which is very well progressed, is coming to us either late March or early April. So it's well progressed, but we'll hear about that later on when we go down the track. Tyrone. Oh.
Yep. So the council.
So Melanie's seconding all of these. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mel.
You won't mind them.
So council allocates $1 million from the Capital Endowment Fund to support progress for the reinstatement of Te Waka Littleton Museum. And then these are a bit more woolly, so I need advice, but the council allocate $2 million in its capital program for 26-27 to support progress for Te Waka Littleton Museum, and allocates $3 million in its capital program for 27-28 to support progress of the reinstatement of Te Waka Littleton Museum. And that council adds the reinstatement of Te Waka Littleton Museum to its consultation document for this annual plan, asking citizens how council and the community can support its reinstatement.
Good.
Yep.
Done. What have we got? Celeste.
So the first one is staff to investigate the option to install a secondary high-level outlet on the existing Signet Street stormwater outfall to be funded from the surface flooding reduction program. second one,
Sorry, who's your seconder for that?
Seconder?
it's Yanni for all of them.
But can we just clarify though? Yanni's just spent 10 minutes criticising the $18 million program that he's now wanting to take money out of.
He was talking about the
I asked
community
the
board
process of putting projects on
reprioritisation.
Right.
But
And this is
anyway,
what we're told.
so the next one was request that staff undertake further work to refine, to improve better walking and cycling connections along Marine Parade, to be undertaken as part of the Eastern Orbital planning work. So these are both cost neutral. And then the third one was, just going to pull that up, but it's effectively around getting staff advice about improving the shoulder on the Lower Styx Road. So it's just adding in a missing gap there in terms of the footpath.
Yep. Righto.
Will you send those through, Celeste?
Yes,
Great.
please. Tyler.
I'm still working on it, but it's surrounded around reducing costs of consultants and asking for staff advice on what it would take to bring some of those in-house.
And
I know that there's been a report and a review on that already, but keen for a seconder.
Yeah. Yanni, you did the seconder? Yep.
Include the cycleway consultants as well, which I've been asking for.
We'll
And
see what that is when it comes to us as consultants in general, I think.
So who was your seconder?
Yanni.
Yanni, great.
Now on Victoria and Pauline. Yep.
Thank you. My amendment is in relation to the capital program, and it includes a substantive amendment with a couple of noting provisions, please, and it's to be seconded by Councillor Fields. And the request is that we align the core capital program, excluding Te Kaha, to match the approved delivery forecast for the corresponding period. And I'm seeking that staff provide the delivery forecast and analysis well in advance of the final plan adoption meeting, and that the analysis of deliverability includes implications on any significant changes to level of service, if any, and ask that staff also provide options to reduce the risks associated with delivery of the capital program. This arises out of the questions that I asked in the recent finance and performance meeting. I've raised it with the finance team and I've sent a copy off to Sam.
Thank you. Jake?
Two from me, that council reinstate the second section of the Richmond Greenway, and Sam has the more specific wording on that one, and that council consult on allocating, I've put $200, but I think I meant to say $200,000 for a pilot central city shuttle service. This was an idea that we ticked off last term, but it disappeared into the ether, so it'd be good to consult the public on.
And seconder is? Oh, sorry. Yep, cool. Okay, thank you. Hang on, Vic. Andre.
Thank you. That council consults on whether the $5 million collected from the cathedral levy be retained or offset against rates. Seconder Harrison Hunt. And that council consults on delaying the Lincoln Road Hewletts to Wright public transport improvements. Seconder Coker.
Okay. Victoria, did you have another one?
My question is actually a matter of process rather than an amendment, and it's just a request for.
Sorry, Joe, can you just pause for a minute? We're just making sure that we've recorded the seconders and.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Moore's seconders.
Okay, great.
What are you seconding? Sorry, what was the amendment?
The one that Mel was seconding.
Consulting on Lincoln Road.
Delaying. Well, it's asked. Well, the plan delays it, and it's consulting on that fact.
So Mel's not. So you'll second it.
Okay, so we're back to Vic with a process question.
Yep, my question is just a request really for my colleagues who are putting in amendments in relation to specific projects within their community board areas, that they inform us about where that particular project sits in their board priorities, so that we can actually be fully informed about whether they are community board priorities or whether they are newcomers.
In the time that we're going to have very soon, staff can come back and say, that's already in there, it's miles away, it's coming, or
Okay.
whatever.
But I totally support what Vic's saying. It's actually really important to know whether these are priorities and where they are with the actual community boards.
What is we can't do
try in the
everything and we have
break
to
to
prioritise.
identify if the board, what the board vote was, if we can, on those things, and whether the councillor's motion is consistent with the board vote. Or,
Yeah.
Just alignment around the
See
board
if we can
priorities. Thank
still
you.
get that.
Someone pushing their own barrow. Right, any more? Oh, sorry, Pauline, yep.
Accepted. So I didn't really want to do this because I believe that we've got this program in hand, and as the Mayor said, we've already begun this, but I have to if other councillors are putting up areas that are flooding in their ward. So my amendment is that staff prioritise the Edgware Village area for flooding mitigation through the surface flooding reduction program. But I'm sure we'll get staff advice on all of these, so, but I have to do that.
Do you have a seconder?
Yanni?
Cool. So,
I'm just pleased the money's still there.
no, I was trying to spend it, Sam, not get rid of it. Actually, spend it on
Now
things that
there
the
is a
community
surprise,
would
Yanni.
like.
There is a surprise.
So the amendments that council reduced the total budget to 856k from 6.856 million for the major cycleway Heathcote Express route, Scruttons Road, Kiwiwell Crossing, and reallocate the funding to improving Bromley Roads project, 2.5 million in FY 25-26 and 2.5 million in FY 26-27, and Healthy Streets Linwood reinstatement, 500,000 in FY 25-26 and 500,000 in 26-27.
Who's your seconder?
Seconder?
Celeste.
Okay.
Ron, is there anything that we can take out of your area that could help out? So, I don't know. It's
Right, moving right along. If there is no, Aaron?
Yeah, I'd just like to put up an amendment that we do no non-essential maintenance for 1 year. So that's like carpet, painting, that kind of stuff. But any essential maintenance still carries on. Anything structural, anything around leaks, but non-essentials just frozen for a year. Yeah.
Okay.
Who seconded that, so?
Yeah.
Who seconder?
It's Kelly Barber.
Kelly. Okay. Right.
Don't-
Quickly.
No.
We'll now take a break, and this could take a wee while, and thank you for your patience to gather the relevant information on the rates impact. And so we'll be back here. I can't really tell you when. It could be at least...
11. Let's start with being back here at
Okay,
11.
11.